Okay, so Roswell, July 1947, New Mexico. I mean, just saying those words kind of sends shivers down your spine, right? And for this deep dive, we're going right to the heart of it. I think it's safe to say the most famous UFO incident ever.
It really is. And for anyone listening along at home, the question we're trying to figure out is, was this a real deal alien spaceship crashing, or is it like the official story says just a weather balloon that got blown way out of proportion and led to a bunch of cover-up theories? It's wild how this one event has captured everyone's imagination for so long.
I know. So let's set the scene. It's July 1947. This rancher, Mac Brazel, he's out in New Mexico and he stumbled upon some super weird debris. And I'm not talking about like an old tire or some lost tools. I mean, this stuff was bizarre. The reports describe it as like metallic but crazy lightweight.
Almost like it defied gravity.
Yeah. But then also tough as nails. Like you couldn't bend it. And get this, there were these beans with these strange symbols on them and this weird foil that you could crumple up, but it would just bounce right back to its original shape. I mean, can you imagine finding that on your property? I'd be freaking out.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing that jumps out right away. It's not like anything familiar. It wasn't wood. It wasn't normal metal scraps. What they're describing doesn't match anything you'd expect to find lying around back then. So Brazel, being a sensible guy, he calls the sheriff, who then contacts the Roswell Army Airfield.
And this is where things really take off. July 8th, the base's press officer, a guy named Walter Hart, he releases this statement that basically sets the world on fire. He says they've recovered a flying disc. Think about that. Official confirmation of a UFO. Newspapers must have gone crazy.
Oh, they did. It was huge. The whole idea of flying saucers was already kind of out there in the public mind. And then this seemed like, boom, proof. Straight from the military. Except, as you said, the party didn't last very long.
Nope. General Roger Ramey steps in, and suddenly it's all about this kind of sad-looking weather balloon. Flying disc. Oh, that was just a mistake. Nothing to see here, folks. Case closed. Except for a lot of people, it felt like that was just the start of the mystery. Don't you think? I mean, come on. Flying disc 1 minute, weather balloon the next. Something just felt off.
You hit the nail on the head. That instant flip-flop from flying disc to a plain old weather balloon is what got people suspicious. Especially when you had guys like Major Jesse Marcel, who was actually out there picking up the debris, saying, nope, this is not a weather balloon. He even said it was like nothing he'd ever seen before.
And it wasn't just the weird metal and stuff either. The story grew to include some pretty out there claims. There are people saying they saw these little gray beings with big eyes being moved around very hush-hush. And then you have this mortician, Glenn Dennis, saying he got calls about child-sized coffins and saw a ton of military activity at the hospital. I mean, that paints a picture that's way more than just a weather balloon gone astray.
Those first-hand accounts, whether they're completely accurate or not, after all this time, they really add fuel to the fire. We're all fascinated by the unknown, right? And these stories hinted at something bigger going on, something secretive. And of course, let's not forget the Alien Autopsy film that came out later. Even if most people think it's fake, it just solidified the whole Roswell image in everyone's minds.
Oh, yeah, that grainy footage, it just stuck with everyone, didn't it? Like this supposed glimpse into something alien. But back to the official story. The military mainly stuck with the balloon explanation and later tied it to Project Mogul. What was that all about? Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So Project Mogul was super top secret back during the Cold War. They were sending up these high-altitude balloons that had radar targets on them. The whole idea was to try and detect if the Soviets were doing any nuclear tests by listening for sound waves high up in the atmosphere. So the official story is that what Brazel found was just pieces of one of these Mogul balloons. They declassified some documents in the 90s that actually backed this up. They talked about the materials they used for these balloons, and they were really unusual for the time.
Okay, so that kind of makes sense. But there are always these loose ends, right? One of the big issues is the timing. Some people have looked into it, and the dates of when they launched the Project Mogul balloons don't quite match up with the Roswell incident. And then there's that initial press release about the flying disc. If it was just a secret balloon, even a weird one, why all the hype? Why not just say it was a test project and be done with it? I don't know. Something feels missing.
That's exactly where people's opinions split. Some people, especially those who believe in aliens, think the whole weather balloon, Project Mogul thing is a big cover-up. They say what really crashed was an alien ship, maybe from a star system called Zeta Reticuli. And they often tie Roswell to Area 51. The idea is that Roswell was the first place they took alien tech and maybe even alien bodies to study and try to reverse engineer.
Which feels right into the whole government conspiracy thing, right? All that secrecy around these projects, the confusing statements over the years, it all makes it feel like they're hiding something. On the flip side, people who are skeptical about the UFO stuff, they look at the whole Cold War picture. Tensions were high back then, and people were already obsessed with flying saucers. Maybe some weird balloon parts, some paranoia, and some misunderstandings all just snowballed into this giant legend.
And there are even wilder theories out there. Some say it was a Soviet hoax, maybe they had some strange aircraft, or even some people say the U.S. had a secret plane crash and tried to blame it on something else. There are even some really far-out ideas about mutant pilots that the Soviets were using to scare people.
Yeah, it's like a rabbit hole. The more you dig, the more theories you find. But when you really boil it all down, there's no hard proof for anything. No matter what you believe, there's no single piece of evidence that settles it once and for all. It's all bits and pieces, those stories people tell. And that FBI memo from 1947 that talks about people seeing discs all over the country around the same time. It's frustrating, but also kind of fascinating.
Definitely, after all this time and all the investigations and reports, the mystery is still unsolved. And it's amazing how Roswell itself has changed because of this one event. It's become a big tourist spot now. There are museums about the incident. They have a yearly UFO festival that tons of people go to. Even the McDonald's there is spaceship-themed. The town's economy is basically built around this decades-old mystery now.
It's wild, right? It's become a real part of our culture. And those stories we talked about earlier, those really keep the whole thing alive. Major Jesse Marcel is saying over and over, even late in his life, that what he saw wasn't a normal balloon. People still talking about seeing strange bodies. Glenn Dennis's detailed story about the child-sized coffins and all the military at the hospital, these all add to the intrigue. And then the Alien Autopsy film, even though it's probably fake, it had a huge impact on how people see Roswell.
And if you look at the official explanations, they haven't always been clear or believable to everyone. That first weather balloon story was way too simple and didn't explain how weird the debris was. The Project Mobile story makes more sense. But like we talked about, the dates don't quite line up, and that first flying disc announcement is still a problem. And then the Air Force report in 1994 tried to explain the aliens as just crash test dummies, but people didn't buy it, especially because of when those dummies were supposedly dropped. And the whole thing with documents being blacked out or just gone missing when people ask for them using the Freedom of Information Act, it just makes it seem like they're not telling us everything.
It all comes back to this unsolved puzzle, doesn't it? And the impact Roswell has had on movies and TV shows and books is undeniable. Think of the X-Files, and it's a big part of the whole Area 51 thing and tons of other UFO theories. Even today, you have people online doing their own investigations and debating what really happened in Roswell. It never goes away.
The whole story just grabs hold of people's minds. It makes you think about our place in the universe and if the government is keeping secrets from us. Big questions.
So we've dug deep into Roswell today. We've looked at that strange debris, the confusing official stories, the stories people have told, and how it's affected our culture. Now it's your turn. What piece of evidence or story sticks with you the most? And why do you think this event from so long ago is still so fascinating and controversial? It's a question that, just like a Roswell mystery itself, may never have a clear answer.